Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that the ToA has been reset once again, and I've been hearing a couple of differing opinions on the difficulty of the game mode. Some have been saying it's turned piss easy, probably depending on some feedback. Some have been saying it's at the same difficulty level, while I, on the other hand, have been seeing a lot of solo clears by characters like Dan Jin and even like Spectro Rover. And so we're just going to be taking some time to explore just how modified the game mode has been after its pretty rough reception across most members of the community back at the very start of 2.0, 2 weeks ago on its very first reset. So right off the bat, you can see that I actually cleared it 30 out of 30 stars. I'm okay at the game. Let's go ahead and check out the middle tower. So it looks like for this middle tower reset, we're seeing the same exact sort of difficulty levers that we saw in the prior one, right? With a focus on two attributes being buffed and the sort of weakening of two attributes over here, like Fusion and Arrow, where Fusion and Arrow characters are going to be dealing less damage, while Spectro and Havoc characters are going to be dealing more. And if it's not clear right off the bat, the reason why Spectro and Havoc are being buffed more is because they want characters like Jinxie and Camellia to be used a little bit more in this tower clear. Camellia, due to the fact, and both Havoc Rover, I guess, due to the fact that Rosia is going to be on the next limited banner, and Jinxie, because of the fact that, well, she's going to be rerunning as well. The only thing that I find a little bit stinky here is the fact that hitting a target with coordinated attacks is going to increase attack by 2% and resonant skill damage. And you can probably understand right off the bat that Camellia benefits from almost no part of this at all, because her best teams, with Shorekeeper and Sanhua, don't do coordinated attacks, so there's no way to actually benefit from the buff, and resonant skill damage is not even a stat for Camellia. So the biggest winner here, and probably the easiest character to use in this reset, is, in my opinion, going to be Jinxie, because she gets that buff over here to the resistance reduction of the enemies. She requires coordinated attacks for her hypercarry teams to function. And with Camellia, on the other hand, you can definitely slot in a character like Verena to actually activate this entire thing. But Camellia is only going to benefit from a 20% attack buff across her entire rotation. And ladies and gentlemen, 20% attack is cool, but it's nothing like 40% resonant skill damage, which is what a character that does resonant skill damage is going to benefit from. The biggest losers in this middle tower, on the other hand, are going to be characters like Chang Li, characters like Encore, characters like Jian, and obviously his best in slot sub DPS, Mortefi. So you can think of these characters as ones that are going to struggle a fair amount, simply due to the fact that those resistances are going to be working in the opposite way for them, right? But on the other hand, your characters like Yinlin and Zhang Liao, I cleared with this team multiple times in the prior reset, even with the Electro Resistance, and I have no doubt in my mind that this team is going to absolutely wipe and destroy this reset because they don't have any elemental resistance to work against. Yinlin has her own coordinated attacks to really spice up the damage profile over here, and it should be a pretty smooth sailing for most of the meta teams in the game. If I'm going to be honest, out of all the limited DPS characters, it's kind of just going to be these two that are suffering. Everybody else should be doing exactly fine. However, a lot of people have been saying that it's a fair bit easier, right? And so right off the bat, I want to try out Jian, but I'm really only going to be able to use him on one side. Because what you're going to find is that the third boss on this side is the Wind Gorilla. And if I combine the Arrow resistance with the Wind Gorilla's innate 40% resistance to Arrow, I'm probably not going to have a good time. So let's go ahead. Let's see how this team does. Let's take it for a spin. But we also have to factor in that my Mortefi, right, who is very well built,
I have experiments underway,
is not going to have a good time against this floor. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can actually clear here. I wouldn't be surprised if I can't. Let's just go ahead and see how the cookie crumbles here. Let's take this team for a spin. I won't be surprised if I don't have a good clear here. But if I do, maybe the mode really did get a lot easier. So as you can see, my Mortefi is basically doing no damage here. It's not looking too hot.
Loading.
Fury boils. Break. Kill tree. Dark silence. Inferno. Ready for battle. Unstoppable.
I also don't have the Nightmare Echo on Jian.
Don't you worry.
I'm also tanking a couple of hits. Not playing that too well. but my Shorekeeper is doing some extra damage.
Safe distance advised. As you wish.
Iron graft you knew. Loading.
Fury boils. Till truth. Feel my wrath. Testing out. You're wide open. Fear no more. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
But as you can clearly see, I'm making some pretty decent time. I'm making some pretty decent time over here, and it should be pretty doable, even with a sub DPS that's dealing actually no damage, and a main DPS that's...
Fury boils.
I mean, maybe I'm on crack, but...
You worry. Burn to ashes.
Oh, and I canceled my Echo skill too.
Ready for battle. Unstoppable.
I canceled my Echo skill too.
Break.
Ordained.
Leave me alone.
Maybe if I didn't cancel my Echo skill there, I get it in like a faster rotation, but...
Astral modulation.
I mean, this is fine.
Loading.
Fury boils. Till truth. Feel my wrath. Testing output. You're wide open. Fear no.
That'll be it. I kind of messed that up too. I kind of messed that up pretty bad. That definitely should have been done in about 3 rotations. That definitely should have been done in 3 rotations. And think about it this way, ladies and gentlemen. That was a really suboptimal Echo allocation. And let me tell you why. Because I had Mortefi on the Empyrene Anthem set, which heavily buffs his damage, his off-field damage. And guess what? When the Inferno Rider has a 50% fusion resistance, Mortefi is not really doing that much damage. I could have gotten a way more comfortable clear simply slotting him on Moonlit Clouds and giving him more buffing ability, 12% damage bonus to Gian, and a 22.5% attack buff to Gian, instead of going with the only buff Gian is getting with this set is a 20% attack buff. And I cleared it quite comfortably, messed up my rotations, didn't have the second hit from the monkey, so my third rotation was unbuffed. And this is basically, I do have Gian's S1, but, you know, it's not like it's making him do more damage during his liberation. And so that's the thing, right? It's not like this was really hard or really that impossible at all. I call that a comfortable clear because I got hit like 400 times. I got smacked around during Gian's first rotation. You literally see me like lose about 2 seconds on his liberation because of that. And if I'm clearing under those conditions, missing an Echo skill, understand that with the Nightmare Monkey, I would have been a lot faster too. My rotations would have been faster. That was pretty easy if I'm being honest. And maybe that just shows that this resistance thing isn't really that important at all for this tower floor, but I found that to be very comfortable. And remember, right, Gian's only usable floor is on side 1, but again, my sub DPS is doing no damage there. He's doing negative damage there. And I'm not going to be able to use Gian on this side because it's the Gorilla, which is going to have a 50% arrow damage reduction or 50% arrow damage resistance. And there's just going to be no damage at all from this. So with that, I mean, it's pretty clear how the middle tower is looking. And we can just go ahead and move on over to some of the side floors. On the right side, we're going to have the Fallacy of No Return with a Havoc resistance reduction. Camellia is going to absolutely eat through this thing. So is Havoc Rover. The only character you really can't use here is Jinxie. But Jinxie probably can still push through the damage. And actually clear this side if she's well invested. And the other thing is, yeah, there's a big basic attack damage buff as well. So Camellia really is the go-to over here. You've got a whole Spectre resistance reduction over here, so you're going to use Jinxie on this side regardless. If you do have her and you want to get the best times. I mean, I gotta say, let's just go ahead and give this floor a try. And I'm not going to be using my Carlotta since she's heavily invested and has multiple sequence nodes. There's no point in me using Zhang Liao because, again, these two are electro-resistant characters, and so it's not really going to work out too well over here. I would just say from that perspective, your best bets are going to be Jinxie. You could try out Chang Li, but since her best partner is Zhang Liao, I'm not really going to go for it. And yeah, I mean, just based off of your lineup, if you have Carlotta ready to go, you'll do just fine. Let's just go ahead and take my Camellia for a spin. Let's try it out. Again, we're not going to be making any use out of the floor buff with this
Would you
team.
like a fun
No use at
game?
all. We tried this team the last time, and we had about a 1 second clear with like 1 second left. Sanhwa's going to have almost no investment at all on Moonlit Cloud. And let's see how this clear is. H Rover obviously is going to work over here as well.
Stay calm.
Like frigid death.
In war with time. Loading.
Stay behind me. Not worth mentioning.
Rather funny. Struggle harder. Entertain me.
My Camellia is not going to have the Nightmare Echo either at all.
Let's have fun.
Oh, I kind of messed up that rotation. Hey, I'm misplaying. I'm misplaying, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try to save Ephemeral for the big guy. And I don't crit, so maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Keep dancing. How pathetic.
Maybe I should not have done that.
Heart. Worry not.
And great. Lotus pervade.
Iron graft you knew.
Stay behind me.
Reborn from ancient feed my blossoms, self-deceivers. Let's have fun.
And you're going to notice that this floor is not nearly as annoying. I actually died. Whoopsies. I'm missing every crit on God's green earth today.
It's getting fun.
I'm missing every crit on the planet today on my Ephemerals, ladies and gentlemen.
Shackles be gone.
Remember, you can always reset, but I'm not going to.
Modulation.
You can always reset,
Stay
but I'm not going to.
A change of perception.
Bloom from ashen shell. Don't run. Keep the dance going. Let's have fun. Vitality. It's getting fun.
Wait, this is actually illegal.
Chaos. Ordained. Stay calm.
Set frozen blockade.
Iron graft
So,
you
I guess this run is just a testament to how strong the tower buff currently is for Camellia, where I'm going ahead, and I guess I'm just going to clear. I guess I'm just going to clear while missing every single important crit.
Let's have fun. Crimson blossom.
That's how much it's supposed to do. All of my Ephemerals, the 4 Ephemerals I cast, 3 of them did 70k, 80k damage, and when it's actually at full damage, it deals around 280. So just imagine that I'm missing about 500k damage there. Just imagine that I'm missing about 500k or so damage in that rotation, and I still cleared it with about 10 seconds left. So that's what's going on over here with an unbuilt Sanhua. And that's kind of like how much easier the tower has gotten from that perspective. I think the fact that the monkey immediately spawns, you can't really like lose any time. You can immediately damage it, makes the clear a lot more smooth. But just from what I'm seeing, this tower looks perfectly fine, at least in the middle area. So, editor, you can play this part on like 1,000,000 speed. I'm just going to clear some of the lower level zones so we can get to the final boss. Maybe you play this on like 5x or something. Yeah. All right, editor, you are now back. And so the big focus over here for this side of the tower is going to be the fact that, well, ladies and gentlemen, the Thundering Mephis, along with the Volt Scourge Stalker, right? This tower is inherently anti-electro. And so do keep that in mind as you're going throughout this clear. You don't want to be using your Zhang Liao on this side, and you don't want to be using your Zhang Liao on the second half of the middle tower. But you do want to use them on the first half of this tower and the right tower. It's perfectly fine. But in this situation, do not use him in Yinlin, or you're not going to have a good time. So with that, obviously, the best in Slack character is going to be Jinxie. You're going to absolutely blow up the content with her. You can also additionally use Carlotta if you want to give her a try. I don't recommend it, though, because those dogs will kind of ruin your life in multi-target. And so let's just go ahead and use one of the teams we were just using before. Except this time, we're going to replace Jian or not Gian, we're going to play Shorekeeper with Verena. We're going to give this team a spin. We're just going to make it real easy. Jinxie cooks this floor, and so I don't really feel like using her.
Notice it. Luminous energy. The fruit of
Fury
evolution.
boils. Burn. Inferno. Tell truth from the sun. Silence. Testing out. Ready for battle. Unstoppable.
And that's it. It's a much faster rotation than Shorekeeper.
Vanilla. Fury boils. As you wish.
Bask in the sunlight.
Fury boils. Set. Tell truth from the sun. Feel my wrath. Testing out. You're wide open. Fear no.
And we're absolutely crushing this thing.
Fury boils. Burn.
Listen, life is in every.
1.0 team, by the way.
I can use some fertilizer. The fruit
Fury
of evolution.
boils. Inferno. Break. Till truth from the sun. Burn to ashes. Testing output. Ready for battle. Unstoppable.
1.0 team, by the way. You had that team in 1.0, by the way. So, obviously, other great picks for this side are going to be A, because the floor is no longer Havoc resistant with the boss, Camellia is a great pick here as well. Even though the floor obviously has the Spectra resistance, and she might be better for the Fallacy. Havoc Rover could also be decent too, if you're able to group the enemies properly, maybe with a bit of Yang help or something like that. But, or even with a little bit of help from Rosia, right, to group that left side for you. And so, Jinxie's gonna blast it. Camellia does a fine job. Yinlin is not recommended. Jeja and Carlotta should be doing okay as well. But overall, it's not a difficult floor by any means. And the fact that it's Electro resistant is like, whatever. Not a huge deal unless you're playing Zhang Liao. Now, let's move on to the right side. And editor, feel free to zoom as much as you want over here. All right. Now that we're done with floors 1 through 4, sorry if you had to see all that relatively disgusting gameplay. Now it's time for us to get on to the last side. And the enemy over here is going to be the Fallacy of No Rewards, so do keep that in mind. However, it's going to have, again, like that Havoc resistance debuff, and honestly, a pretty okay bonus for the floor. Increased critical rate, and so you're not going to be hurting if you don't run Shorekeeper on this side, because this critical rate buff, as long as you're above 75%, is better than Shorekeeper Stellar Realm. Shorekeeper Stellar Realm gives around 12.5%, and so keep that in mind if you've like typically not been playing certain characters because you feel like you're missing Shorekeeper's critical rate. You have an equivalent, if not better buff, although obviously not the critical damage piece, but it's something that you can really keep in mind, especially if you're playing a character like Camellia or Zhang Liao, who don't have a lot of built-in critical rate in their skill tree. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop in this team and give it a bit of a spin. Cammy 1 rotates, I hope. She does a lot of damage.
Don't blink. Bask in the sunlight. The fruit of evolution. I can use some fertilizer.
Zap strength. It's our curtain call. You're not getting away.
And let's just start punching. Yep, that critical rate is coming in handy here.
Reconfiguration. Reconfiguration.
Oh, bro's going sicko mode. I don't like that.
Complete overhaul. Conditions optimal.
Tear them to pieces.
Why did he do it? He did it too early. He literally did it too early. Yinlin, you gotta try harder to hit him.
To hibernate.
So, Pretend that my Verena didn't die and that I'm getting her buffs.
Variable elimination.
Pretend that she didn't die and that I'm getting her buffs. Yeah, awesome. Okay.
Reconfiguration. Conditions optimal. Complete
Tear
overhaul.
them to pieces. Obey me. Time to wrap it up. Cleave it.
Still cleared with a minute. I just didn't expect my Verena to get one shot like that. She actually got crushed. That was crazy. So, obviously, that fallacy had so little HP. I was doing more damage to it than its break bar. Because the fallacy basically triggers its flying mode when it reaches a certain HP threshold, not its break bar. And its HP is so low that I triggered its flying mode way earlier than I intended from dealing all that damage. So that's kind of like the issue here, is this stage might be easier if you can time your breaks on the fallacy about to fly by doing less damage. The only problem with this stage is dealing too much damage and triggering its flying mode too early before you can break it. And that can obviously only happen if this thing has no fucking HP. So my recommendation is time your damage a little bit. If you're struggling with its flying mode, time your damage to deal less, or just maybe just use like, I don't know, like a Spectro character or something. It's just, this thing actually would be a little bit easier in my opinion if it had more HP. I actually think it would be a little bit easier if it had more HP. Or you can just use Carlotta and freeze it and then absolutely destroy it from there. But overall, when it comes to this stage, I'm just going to reset for fun. The DPSs that I would consider using the most are Jian, Zhang Liao, Camellia. Fuck it, you could use Chang Li too. Just not, the only recommendation here is to not use Jinxie. You can obviously use Carlotta too. You should have at least one of these characters. You know, you should have at least like a blend of these characters or something. And you'll do absolutely fine on this part of the stage. It's quite an easy one. So we've gone through every single stage. We've gone through what are supposed to be the hardest ones first as well. I gotta say that this version of the Tower of Adversity is pretty easy. It isn't really that hard at all. They've added in specific enemies. The hardest character to probably use here is Zhang Liao, because he doesn't have any viability on this stage. And he has very low viability on this stage. But if you're able to allocate him in, first of all, this slot, the first zone of the ToA, and then you can also allocate him in this zone with the fallacy, you've already used up all of his energy. And so him not being good on two sides is not a problem, because you can already spend 9 out of his 10 energy on stages where he does perfectly fine in. So to me, it's pretty balanced. It's pretty player friendly at this point. And sure, we saw the attribute damage bonus in play again, but we just cleared with a Jian team where my Morphe is doing actually negative damage to Inferno Rider. And we cleared it pretty comfortably with me getting hit a bunch of times. So HP looks like it's been lowered pretty significantly in this reset. And I don't think players should be struggling nearly as much as in the prior reset at the start of the patch. And as a final note, when it comes to the difficulty of this tower, guys, we have people posting ridiculous clears like this. There's somebody soloing with Spectro Rover, no other teammates on the new Frazzle set, in the middle tower, and then simply using one other character in the middle tower as well. This is kind of like, you know, both the part of like the elemental resistance reduction, but we also have people soloing with Chisha in the 4th zone, and then people soloing, right, with Yang Yang and, you know, a little bit of Sanhua as well. But it's safe to say that this version of the tower, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot easier than the last one, because I don't think that this would be possible at all in the prior reset, given how difficult that last reset actually was. And so we can definitely see that maybe there's a couple of players, right, that have gotten a lot better, invested a lot more, maybe raised their skill cap in their rotations. And now heading into this reset, there is not really that need to utilize all of that previously built up characters or that skill set as much. And so there needs to be like a bit of a careful balance that's struck here by Kuro Games. I think they might have rotated the pendulum a little bit too much in the other direction. there might be some people who are still looking for a bit more of a challenge in the game mode. But we'll see how it progresses. This is only the second reset of 2.0. We'll just have to see what it looks like in 2.1. But this should be the final nail in the coffin for the power creep discussion in Wuthering Waves. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the starter character. You get this guy for free at the start of the game. I think it speaks volumes that they're soloing the hardest endgame content, hardest resetting endgame content by themselves. Soloing by themselves. I know what that sounds like. So yeah, let's put that discussion to rest.